Gary has got a big one tomorrow, LSU and Alabama. Gary, though, I got to get to yesterday first.
Sure.
I was wrong on both games. I thought, first of all, that Oklahoma could run it on Baylor and that they'd keep it close. They couldn't. I got to give the Baylor defense credit. And then I thought that Oregon would slow down the Stanford running game, which looked weak against Utah, and I was wrong again. They played and pounded and dominated the game with their running game. So both surprised me. Oklahoma couldn't run it, and then Stanford could run it. Take it one at a time. Take Oklahoma-Baylor first.
Well, you're not alone. Okay, I think that was the consensus from a lot of people of how these games would go on. I think the first thing you have to do when you watch Oklahoma play is they seem to be a shell of themselves on offense.
Really? They couldn't move the ball last night.
I know. Where are those great offenses? He's just gone about, 6 or 7 years, whether they were 3 or 4 year quarterbacks with great quarterbacks, and this team has struggles very much at the quarterback position. We talked about this all year, you and I, that the college game is very much approaching the NFL game now. If you don't have very high above average quarterback play, you're going to struggle.
And their defense gave them a chance to break that game open in the first half. They could have had 17, 21 points if they could move the ball.
Absolutely, and it changed the whole structure of the football game. Then they get demoralized, and then it gets kind of be a roll away at the end of that game. So, yes, Baylor showed they're a legitimate football team, but more glaring, again, is that, in the second big game of the year, the last one you and I talked about was, Oklahoma, Texas. They did beat Notre Dame, give them credit for that, but Oklahoma, Texas, and now Oklahoma, Baylor, their offense just did not look like what we've become used to watching Oklahoma play. Now, the second game, I've been on a lonely island out here saying that, yes, I understand that you have to be able to spread out the ball. Yes, I understand that a new version of that is to go up-tempo. But that can't be the foundation of your team, I don't believe. You still have to be able to stop the run, block people when necessary.
Yep.
And if the other team puts a 10-play drive on you, and eats up 8 minutes on the clock, you can't go out there and go 3 and out.
Absolutely.
It's one of the weaknesses of Chip Kelly's offense.
Plus, it's not good from the 5-yard line in either.
Well, at the end of that game, I thought said about as much as you could say. Finally, through a serendipity that was hard to believe. Okay, I'm yelling at the TV, don't kick a field goal in this situation, and they do and get one return for a touchdown, and then they get an onside kick. Then down to the, if they get it first and goal from the half-yard line, if they score on the very next play, they don't even have to go.
I agree. It took them. They don't have a base play to get 1 yard.
And that was the problem that Oregon had in the national championship game against Auburn. A very average SEC defense. They could not figure out what to run inside. Stanford attacked that offense on 2 of those 3 plays. They fumbled. It was just you need to have the basics. I believe, yes, you can run up the score, but I think, it's been showed again that it's harder for an up-tempo. I'm not saying people don't hear the whole sentence. I'm not saying up-tempo doesn't have its place. But like every other tactic in a game, screen passes, play-action passes, no huddle, spread, 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, it's a part of your package. It can't be the foundation of your team.
No question. Give Stanford and Shaw credit. Great performance. Tough, old-fashioned performance. Wonderful 42 minutes possession. Just a million carries.
And it was. The one word that and listen, we all do this. When I'm doing a game, you grab a word and maybe you'd like to have a do-over. The word that was constantly being used is that they're tougher than Oregon. It's not tougher; it's style.
Yep.
They're style. The one of the Long brothers played guard. Well, I can't remember his first name. Kyle Long, I believe it is. Who played guard for Oregon last year. He's one of the toughest guys you could ever have. But in that style, sitting in a 2-point stance on the offensive line where the linebacker's taking a running start at you, it's hard to be physical.
Yep, I agree. And their execution was brilliant. No turnovers, no penalties. They ran everything to precision. Really wonderfully done. It really was.
Yeah, now I will say this about Mariota. Okay, he is And it was a little bit nicked last night. Could have had a factor on the game, but it's part of the game. Ask Georgia if it's not part of the game, the way their team has been decimated this year, and other teams have been through it. I talked all along about Marcus being a somewhat of a prospect for the NFL, but he had a long way to go. In that offense, they run a lot of play-action crossing routes with guys wide open. He's not being asked to be an NFL quarterback in this offense. But he did show me he's got a lot of ability to take as a prospect and turn into someday.
Yep.
I think
I thought the fourth down pass showed you a perfect NFL-style pass. He waited, he stepped up, he looked, he got the second receiver. He did everything right that time.
He's got a lot of ability, but you do question if somebody can take him with the first 3, 4, 5 picks. That's a big project.
And the big winners last night were Florida State and Johnny Football. They were the big winners last night, because Manziel's back on top, and Florida State's the other team now.
Well, I think it was a huge win for Florida State. There's no doubt about that. And Ohio State, too. And I want another guy to throw in here, and it's just because of, my own prejudices. Because I've always believed this. One of the things I got kind of honked off when, Peyton Manning stayed for his senior year, and and Charles Woodson's a great player. I'm not arguing that. But, I thought Charles, if he wanted to win that Heisman, should have come back for his senior year and taken it under the pressure of having to win it the way Peyton did. So I believe A.J. McCarron should still be in the middle of this thing. I mean, he could possibly do 3 straight years of leading this team. I was just on a TV show with Phil Simms, and Phil asked me to rank some of the SEC quarterbacks. And when we got to A.J. McCarron, he says, well, what do you project A.J.? And I said, well, here's his top side, Phil. He could be a Phil Simms. And I'll tell you why. It's hard to play for Bill Parcells. It's hard to play quarterback for Nick Saban. It's a whole different world when your coach says, I don't want you making mistakes. I don't want those tight window throws. We got a good football team here. If it's not there, we're very happy to punt the ball, and that takes a lot of discipline. And believe me, A.J. McCarron is going to show a lot of these people in the offseason that he's a big-time prospect. And I think if he takes this undefeated team again, he should be right up at the top of this conversation. He beat Manziel in that game.